Welcome back to episode 5 of the Physio Diaries podcast. And we are so excited because today we have a very special guest, Dr. Casey Coleman. And we are so excited to have him here.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, of course. Who else would we have for our first guest?
I don't know. I'm honored.
Okay, Casey does so much and we have so many questions for him today. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first to our listeners. Tell us a little bit more about your endeavors, businesses, all of that.
Yeah, so my name's Casey Coleman. I'm a physical therapist. I started getting into the world of physical therapy back in, I guess, really 2011. Or actually probably before that, because when we take career tests or whatever in high school, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's probably the first time I really heard of physical therapy. And I was between pharmacy and physical therapy because I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to be a physician. And I was like, what else is out there? And, we're in high school. We don't really know. So I found pharmacy and I found physical therapy. I was really after pharmacy for the dollar signs, being 17, 18, 16. I didn't really know what PT can do now. So long story short, I went into pharmacy before my undergrad in college, my first year in college. And I did an internship, a summer internship before that first year. And I did not like what I saw. I was like...
It's good that you did that, though.
Yeah.
Because maybe you would have never known.
You need to experience and see.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be here with you guys. So
that's true.
That was that. So, and I got into that internship. I didn't think I would get into it. So I was like, obviously, this is a sign to do pharmacy. It wasn't. It was a sign to do physical therapy. So I went into physical therapy after my freshman year in college, and I stayed with it ever since. Got rejected my first time. I applied. I can go into that if you want. Then I reapplied again and got into physical therapy school. So long story short, I graduated physical therapy school in 2018. Been working as a physical therapist ever since, and now I'm here today with you guys.
Awesome. It's a good little synopsis.
Yeah.
It's crazy because it's kind of a full circle moment because I actually found you years ago, I think 2017, 2018, when I was applying to PT school and I had no idea what I was doing. And I joined a bunch of Facebook pages at the time because Facebook was a big thing back in the day. And I was in a bunch of Facebook pages and people were talking about pre-PT grind and I followed you guys and ended up using your services, and they are probably the reason why I actually got into PT school. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad it helped.
Really full circle.
Yeah. Okay, quick question. When did you graduate PT school?
2018.
Okay, so then you've been practicing for about 6 years now?
Yep,
okay,
6 years.
Gotcha. Yeah, deep in the field now.
It feels like it. It finally feels like it. For the first maybe 3-ish years, it didn't feel like it, but now it really feels like it.
Yeah. Did you have imposter syndrome?
Let's go into that. What does that mean?
Oh.
What does that mean? I don't know.
I opened the box.
Yeah.
I didn't even mean to. So I guess a lot of people have imposter syndrome first year, feeling like they don't belong, they don't have the credentials and authority even though they do, and you just feel out of place.
And you're asking, did I have that?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but I never really felt that it had that title or that label. What I felt was a disconnect between clinical stuff and administrative stuff. That's probably the closest I felt to imposter syndrome. I didn't really feel that I couldn't do it or I wasn't worthy enough or I couldn't handle it. Probably because I worked so hard to get there and I was rejected the first time. So nothing could beat that, I guess, devastating feeling of being rejected. So when I got to being a physical therapist, I was like, okay, yeah, some parts are hard, but it's not as rough as what I went through. So that might have something to do with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was true imposter syndrome like other people feel. It was just a little overwhelmed with all the new stuff going on.
Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah.
Do you feel like because you said you got rejected the first time, it gave you this motivation to kind of just succeed in the future and just, I don't know, you're doing so much that it just
definitely.
You have this drive that's very impressive.
Yeah. That not a lot of people have, for sure.
I definitely had a chip on my shoulder because I was like, how dare you reject me? So basically, here's what happened.
Yes,
look what you're missing out on.
So I was a pre-pharmacy major, like I said, and I switched over to physical therapy.
Yeah.
And I was taking all the classes you guys all have to take now. but we didn't have to take at my school. So I was taking general biology, general anatomy, physics, chemistry, all that stuff for pharmacy school.
Oh, gotcha.
Prereqs for pharmacy school. But I didn't have to take those as a pre-PT major if I was a pre-PT major first.
Oh,
So I had a 3.4 GPA. That class was so competitive the first time I applied that they weren't accepting anyone below a 3.5 for interviews.
Yeah.
So I was like, how dare you? I was in my feelings.
How many schools did you apply to?
Just that one.
Okay.
Oh, you just applied to one?
Because I was a junior. I was trying to do the 3+3 program.
Oh, gotcha.
And I was not happy. So after that, back to your question, now that I was going into the field, I was like, I don't want a job to reject me. So that's when I started all this business stuff that led to Pre-PT Grind and Cash and Class University and the business I have now and me being on a podcast with you. So I definitely had a chip on my shoulder for real.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah. So you went to PT school in Michigan, you said. How did you end up back in the Chicagoland area then?
Oh, family's here.
Just family?
Yeah,
Okay.
came back to work. It was
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Wanna
And
be close to
Chicago's
home.
great city.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah,
It really
it's
is,
fun.
as you guys know.
Yeah.
Every time I come back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss it. Like, should I
great.
stop traveling?
I
Move
literally
back? I don't know.
had that thought this week.
I know.
Yesterday, I was
Yeah.
like, should I move back to Chicago? And
Come
I
back in
woke up
January. You
cold.
might not think that.
I was like, no.
Yeah, those
But it's
3
still-
months are rough in the winter.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I agree. Chicago's great. I love it. Sometimes I
is.
get questions like, when are you going to move? When are you going to travel or do something else? I'm like, why? It's
Yeah.
great.
fair.
Also, if you're going to
There's
start a
everything
business,
here.
this is the place to do it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big city, you know, lots of
So many
connections.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Miss it.
Well, we have a couple questions for you here. So, first one, what inspired you to create Pre-PT Grind?
Let's see if I can give you a short story. Then you guys can ask more questions. Okay. So it's kind of a lot of overlapping stories. So, of course, I was rejected the first time. And after I was rejected, my business partner, Joseph, who you'll see on content as well, he was already a pre-PT major. And he got into that class I was rejected from.
Gotcha.
So he also had to do a leadership project in school, like as an elective. And he chose to do the leadership project on like basically a pre-PT club because our other friends, even before I was rejected, didn't even get to the point of applying because as you guys know, oh, you failed this class, you're not smart enough, you can't do it, you should do something else, as we've all heard before.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'm going to do my leadership project on that because everybody, well, not everybody, but all of our acquaintances and friends were like pre-PT majors because that was one of the big things on campus. If you were a pre-PT major, you were the stuff, right? Because we had a PT school on campus.
Yeah.
So people were just dropping like flies. So he did that leadership project class on that of people dropping out and making sure they didn't drop out. So it became more of a structured pre-PT club. So he called me up this summer and was like, hey, I saw what happened. I saw you didn't get in. Would you mind being a mentor? Are you interested in being one? So that started the pre-PT success program on our campus, which is now pre-PT Grind. So we did that on our campus all through PT school. And when we were leaving, he was about to leave. I was going on clinicals. And I took a business mentorship class, online class from someone named Greg Todd. And I was like, well, we're leaving. And he was like, what are you going to do? What are we going to do with this? And I was like, well, this is all that I've learned from this business guy. We can blow this thing up to what it is now. I didn't know it would be what it is now. And he was like, okay, sure, let's try it. And so we did that and officially started as a company in 2017. And here we are now in 2024. So back to your question, what started it? That's what started it. Yeah.
Awesome.
On campus.
Yeah.
Yes, during school.
During school.
Started as a club.
Yep, just a pre-PT
How
club.
many, if you had to guess, how many students have you helped with like the process of getting into school?
Right now, we probably have, if I had to calculate, over 80,000 followers, across
across
all
the board.
social media. So somewhere close to that or around that.
That's
Give or take.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's cool. And we
That's
were
a
talking
huge
before
number.
the podcast. I forget how long we've been doing it because now you're a PT. And you're like, yeah, I followed you guys back. And I'm like, wait, 17, 18, 19,
I know,
20, 21.
yeah.
It's been like 7, 8 years. It's been
But it's
crazy.
been a blur. Like I feel like
Yeah.
since then, I feel like it was like yesterday.
Yeah,
you
it does
know?
feel like yesterday.
Yeah,
It doesn't
it's
feel
crazy.
like we're pre-PT grind. It still feels
Yeah.
like a school project, even though it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, it's just us. And
It's
people are
come a
like,
long
no, it's you guys.
way.
And I'm like, no, it's just us.
Yeah.
So it's cool, though. It's cool.
That's
So
really cool.
to your like students and people you work with directly, what are, I guess, like the 3 biggest tips you give them or have them work on?
Yeah. The biggest thing is I'm just real with them. So the biggest thing is like, okay, you got to get your GPA up.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's just what it is. It's the nature of the
Yeah.
game.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And I'm like, don't shy away from it. They're like, but can I do something else? But observation hours, but this and that. And I'm like, no, get your GPA up if that's really what they need to do. Then once we do that, because the schools have a certain threshold to get in, and I'm like, okay, now we can focus on the other stuff. After that, I'm like, focus on being more specialized in your application than generalized. Instead of getting 15 electives or extracurriculars, I'm like, if you have one, like in community service, and you have 3 years of experience in that community service, and you've rose up the ranks to being a leader of that service, and you've impacted 3,000 people, and you have, all this data of what you've done, that's going to be so much more impressive than you having 15 clubs that you just signed your name on.
Yeah.
Like the physical therapy school people are smart. They're not dumb. They know what to look for. So that's the second thing. Then the third thing is probably just reminding them that like you're gonna be a future PT. Like it's somewhere. There's some date out there in the future. Like when you guys found us, depending on when you did. Like now your PTs on. What's today? The October 3rd, 2024, and you guys been PTs for a year or so.
Yeah.
Like
never
when
know.
you guys were pre-PTs, this day existed.
Yeah.
That's facts.
So like in all
Yeah.
the grind and all the stuff that they have to do, I'm like, it's okay. Like your
Yeah.
time's coming. You're doing what you have to do. You're
Yeah.
gonna be a PT.
I think it helps as a student because you're just so unsure, like if you're gonna get in, what the right thing to do. You guys have seen so many students go through the process, and it was just helpful to know that you guys are looking at it from like an external point of view, and you're like, no, this is what you need to fix. Like I knew I needed help in my essays because that was a big part for me that I was not good at. Like I had the GPA, I had like the GRE or whatever, but the essays I was like, okay, I need to kill these if I want to get into PT school, and that was a big help, Because I'm like, Mom, you can edit my essays, but like, no, these guys know what they're doing. And she's like, are you sure you want to pay somebody? I'm like, yes, this will be the best money I've ever spent, and it was.
Yeah, that's
So
what brand.
yeah,
that's
it's
what
just
brand
nice
does.
to have someone guide you because
and so stressful too.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the whole process and like I had a good GPA and I like knew I like worked really hard on my GPA during undergrad, but I had a terrible GRE. Like I did not get a 300. I had below a 300 and I knew I was going to do really bad on it just because I always do bad on standardized tests, and I was like, "Oh, what else am I going to do to make myself stand out and be different?" So and I definitely didn't get into schools because of the GRE. And I know that as a fact.
And the thing is now they're not even making it a big thing.
It's crazy.
Like for me, the English part, it was so
bad.
bad because I think this is why we both are not like our English was not our first language.
Oh.
So I still in my phone to this day have a list of 2,000 words. I'm not even kidding, that I learned for the GRE. And that I probably never will use again.
What?
But I still have it in my phone. And I'll every now and then when I'm bored, I'll look through it and I'll be like, okay, yeah. So my math score was fine. English had to go way up.
It's so low for me.
Yeah.
I always did terrible on vocabulary in English.
Okay, so what is that like then, being English as a second language, having English tested on you?
It was
Terrible.
always hard. I
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
bombed English and vocababulary in like ACT, SAT, standardized tests in school. I don't know if people even know what the ISATs were.
Oh,
we
yeah.
had the ISATs.
Yeah, it's an Illinois
Oh
thing.
my gosh,
Yeah.
like reading and having to comprehend
Yeah.
everything, and like all of these big words that like were not used at home. My
No.
grandparents did not speak English for real, and I was with them
Yeah.
half the time. So like just
Yeah.
very different.
I'm just glad that they're out, but I wish I wish this had happened like years ago. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
I spent a whole summer on the GRE.
Yes.
Like I was studying
Yeah.
hard.
It's a pain. It's
Yeah.
a pain.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's over.
I know. Yeah.
Do they take GRE at all anymore? Like you would know better.
It's like 50-50 now.
Okay,
Some
gotcha.
schools take them. Some schools are like, no, we don't need it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, the application is interesting. I like to remind people, or not remind them, but tell them like when they're asking me about like, should we use you guys or not or whatever, like they have all these questions. I'm like, well, it's kind of like doing physical therapy.
Yeah.
Like, I'm rehabbing your application. And I know how to rehab an
Good
application
point.
better. Like, at the time, I knew how to rehab an application better than an ankle sprain because I've done it for longer, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, well, just know that, like, if you have a 1.7 GPA, it's like you had a spine surgery. I can't get you better in 2 days. Like, we
Right.
need some time for that, right? But if you have like a 3.6 and you just need some help on the GRE or you need a little tweak here and there, it's like you're coming in with, you know, a 3-day-old ankle sprain. So now it's like to get them to view that perspective. Do you want to prevent that ankle sprain? Or like, do you want rehab for your spinal injury? Or do you want to do this on your own? Like, what do you
Very
want?
good
Because I can
point.
rehab your application if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
But what do you need and what kind of injury to your application do you have? And then they're like, oh, okay, I'll either
Yeah.
use you guys or use this or not. So that
Yeah,
helps.
Yeah.
that's a very good analogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do or change the second time around during the application process?
I did everything I tell people now. So,
Okay.
of course, I improved my GPA. So I had a 3.4, retook anatomy twice,
Okay.
applied to that specific school because, you know, they're all slightly different
Yeah.
when you retake classes. I had a 3.7 when I applied the second time. I applied earlier. I redid the essay, got more or new letters of recommendation as well. Then I focused on like my specialty of what I was doing. So I focused on the pre-PT success program and said, this is what I was doing, this how long, this how many people I helped, and all that stuff. Then the PT school was on campus. So then I got in front of the faces of the people there. So when they saw my application come through, they were like, oh, yeah, we know you. We know what you've been doing. You've been working with Joses and blah, blah, blah. And I applied the year before. It was smooth. It was
Yeah.
easy.
There you go. Awesome.
Okay, so outside of pre-PT grind,
Mm-hmm.
you have your own business too in Chicago. Tell us more about Rise and Recover.
Yeah, so Rise and Recover Rehab is focused on, it's not only helping them, but focused on people 45 years and older, men and women in Chicago, 45 years and older, recover from their injury so that they are healthy and active enough to make new memories. Because the people who I've usually worked with throughout my PT career so far have been like average 55 years and older African American women. And people around that demographic, like we know, whoever we work with in that age group,
Yeah.
they're just like, well, I have my kids and grandkids stressing me, but then my parents are getting older, then my job, and if I get injured, then I can't work. Then people are depending on me, and they're just getting pulled in
A
all
lot
these
of
different
factors.
directions.
Yeah.
But nobody's really taking care of them. Then they come to us, right? And they're telling us
Yeah.
all their problems, and
Yeah.
we become different
Trauma
therapists
dump.
and physical therapists. So I was like, this is the people I know. I know
Yeah.
them. I know what they think. I know what they act like. I know their jobs. I know this. Just like we did with pre-PTs. So that's what Rise and Recover is focused on doing.
Yeah. Okay. How many patients do you typically have like a set amount a day or week? Like how do you?
I try to do, if I can get over 12 visits a week,
Okay.
that's a great week for me. Like 12 to 15
Nice.
visits. So on my caseload right now, I have about 9. It'll be 9 because one's about to be discharged. So yeah,
Okay. Do you guys take insurance or is it cash based?
it's both. So right
Okay.
now, it's funny that I'm on the podcast now because stuff has just been working out. It's
Yeah.
crazy since like
We love
end of
that.
August. Like I've been saying no to a lot of things recently as well. And since I've been
That's a
saying
skill
no,
to learn, honestly.
It is.
things have just been going well. So basically, a company found me, a brand new company, startup, and I might be one of the first people on their platforms to help private practices like me
That's
handle all
awesome.
the insurance stuff.
Yeah.
So that'll probably take the next 4 to 6 to 8 weeks for all the credentialing. So yes, I finally can say yes, I take insurance. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay, but you didn't
awesome.
start with taking insurance.
No, just cash.
Okay. Just now started.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
How-
you said you got most of them through social media, right? Okay.
It's crazy how much like social media can affect so much now.
Yeah.
Everybody's on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a great tool, especially for like, physical therapists.
Yeah.
Okay.
As we were kind of browsing a little bit through your website, I saw that you use something called the 180 system. And I was just curious if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, before I do that, how much do you know about it? So that'll tell me how
Honestly,
much to go
not
deeper.
much.
We were-
like how
yeah.
yeah. How do you
Okay.
differ
Sure.
from like conventional PT, I guess.
Okay, gotcha. So the background story is that I've been thinking about like doing my own thing for a while, but I've been seeing people, like I've been around the physical therapy space since 2015, 16 when I was applying to school. So I've been seeing and watching social media, Facebook stuff for a while, and I've been seeing people succeed and not succeed and all that stuff. So I was like, yeah, I'm interested in doing my own thing, but what product, what result am I going to give differently to people? What am I? I'm just going to do the same thing I was doing at, a big corporate clinic in my own private practice. Like, what is their incentive to pay cash at the time, or just come to me over anywhere else? What's the differentiating factor? And at the time, I really didn't have anything through the first 5 years of my career. I was just like, I know business stuff and I can do physical therapy, but the physical therapy wasn't my strong suit. The clinical stuff wasn't my strong suit. The business stuff was. So I found the 180 system. His name is Rhett Polka at a physical therapy event in June of 2023. And some of our pre-PT grind students were there, and he was doing treatments on them. And they were like, you got to meet this guy. You got to meet him. So I went upstairs to shoot some content with some people, and he was outside the door. I shook his hands for like 5 minutes, or sorry, 5 seconds. It was more like 5 seconds. They were like, yeah, here's the guy. I was like, okay, cool. How you doing? Then he started tagging pre-PT grind on social media. Then I started watching his stuff, and I was like, this is all the stuff I've been thinking since I graduated.
Wow.
All the stuff from admin to insurance to how the patients think to the treatment process. I was just like, this is what I've been thinking. So basically it was like, why are we keeping patients so long if they don't want to stay so long? Why so many visits? Why aren't we getting them back sooner?
Yeah.
What is the root cause of the problem? All that stuff. So that's the background story to it. So basically what the 180 system is teaching, and also teaching the patients, is what is the root cause of all your problems? And I know a lot of people in physical therapy say that, or in healthcare say that, but are they really digging deep enough into it?
Yeah, most are not.
Right. So it's not really a pop quiz, but I'm asking you guys, because we can get technical because this is kind of our audience.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard of, well, we've all heard of it, but inhibition of like the muscles, like reciprocal inhibition. For those of you who don't know, if your pre-PTs watching this, it's like if you make a bicep, right, your tricep has to contract less so that your bicep can contract, right? So the opposite muscle has to be inhibited or contract less a little bit, right? And that happens throughout the body. So with that concept, with inhibited muscles, we've learned, or I've been taught through the 180 system, or reminded, because we're taught this in school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 180 system isn't teaching us anything new, it's just teaching us how to apply it, right? So I've been reminded that the inhibition is really the root cause of the problems. So someone comes to us, Miss Sally comes to us with knee pain. Oh man, my knee hurts. The doctor says I have arthritis and I'm not doing surgery. I'm not doing a cortisone shot, all that stuff, right? What caused the knee pain? Oh, the muscles are tight. Okay. What caused the muscle tightness or the weakness or the arthritis? Oh, it's unstable.
Oh,
What
my.
caused the instability, right? Oh, she had an injury 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay, what caused the injury?
Yeah.
Right? And he just kept going and going and going to the microscopic level of the muscle fibers. Everything we learned in school.
Yeah.
Like the
All
muscle
goes back to
spindles,
it.
the fibers, all that technical stuff.
Yeah.
And if we reverse that inhibition of the neuromuscular junction at the neuromuscular junction, that will then fix the muscle firing that's not strong enough. And if that's not strong enough, the joint is unstable. The joint is unstable. That leads to the grinding and the arthritis stuff. Then that leads to the swelling, the pain. Then that leads to the lack of mobility,
Yeah.
which all started from the muscle spindles and the
Yes.
neuromuscular junction of the inhibition. So if we fix that, which is the root cause of everything, are we fixing the root cause of the problem? So long story short, that's the 180 system.
Yeah,
That
no,
makes
that
sense.
makes tons of sense. And I think that that's not like emphasized enough to patients as well. So I think that's just such a great, I guess, tool and mindset to also like reiterate and use, because, I can just go, I can't get into this right now because I'll go on forever about arthritis and all of that. But
Like the amount of people that tell me they're bone on bone and there's like no hope. I'm like, who told you that? Like, where are
But
you
it-
hearing this
yeah.
information? You know?
there's just so many misconceptions and things
Yeah.
people just don't understand, and a lot of people don't explain to them, so it's not their fault. But yeah, that's really cool though.
Yeah, it is.
I love it. I
It's
use it all the
awesome.
time.
Yeah.
It makes everything much more structured and streamlined, because before this I was like, okay, I guess I'll stretch them.
Yeah.
Maybe foam roller, but try this. But then next treatment, try this. And it was nothing structured for me to go back to and be like, this is the steps.
Yeah.
Let's do it over and over
Yeah.
again. So it's great.
So I was sorry. I was gonna say, with your program then, like if you were to see a patient, you don't necessarily see them every week then, or it just depends on the patient. Like
With the patients in time I have now, I like to see them once a week.
okay.
Then if they're more high functioning, I guess, I taper them out for like
Yeah,
a
that's
month
fair.
and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. But yeah,
Yeah. Nice.
I forgot what I was going to ask. That's okay.
it'll come back.
Okay, so
That's a good question.
changing gears here. We recently had an episode about burnout and stressing and like self-care, because especially when you're still working in the clinics and for people who are working for PT mills and stuff, burnout is very real. So I wanted to ask you if one, you've experienced burnout, and two, what you do in your daily life to just like decompress, kind of take a break mentally, and yeah, self-care.
I think the closest I've got to feeling burnout was during COVID. Our time got cut in half. We were doing like 20 something hours.
You were working then?
Working.
Okay.
Yeah. Full time 40
Yes.
hours, then COVID came, right? We never fully shut down, but it was like 20 something hours. And I just remember feeling like, I don't know how to describe it, but it was just like, I don't have to be here. I don't need to be here. I'm coming in half the time. Can I just stay home? The patient load was, cut in half. It was just like, everything during that time was just kind of
Heavy.
Yeah, so it was just like, I just remember like daydreaming a lot more than usual during that time.
Spacing off a little bit.
Like, what
Spacing
other
off.
side hustles could I be starting right now?
Exactly. I think that's the closest to it. I remember the manager at the time like asking me like, "Are you okay?" And I was like,
Yeah.
I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't really feel anything until he asked me that.
Yeah.
That was the closest to it. Other than that, I don't think I felt burnout. And I've talked about this in the past, because going way back to the beginning of the episode, I was rejected the first time. So once I got to be a physical therapist, I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like, what is everybody complaining about? Because again,
Yeah.
I've been watching people complain about PT since
Yeah.
before I was a physical therapist. So I got to be a PT and I was like, this is great. I worked my butt off to get here, and there are people who follow me who would kill to be in your position.
Yeah.
And you have the nerve to complain about burnout, patient load, and this and that and that. So from my perspective, because I had the two dichotomies working on me all the time, me being a PT, but me literally DMing somebody while Miss Johnson is doing step-ups, saying, I want to be a PT.
Yeah.
But then I swipe again, and somebody's like, PT's the worst. I'm like, you don't know how good you have it.
Yeah.
You're literally
Yeah.
getting paid for stuff thousands of people want to do. And you have the nerve to complain.
Yeah.
That's a very good
Yeah.
mind shift to have too.
Not saying their complaints weren't valid, because I get it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm a PT now.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, you can change it. You can do travel. You can do anything.
Right.
You're a freaking physical therapist, and people want to
Yeah.
be you. So I think from that perspective of the place I've been in, I've really never had to experience or chose to experience burnout.
Yeah.
Wow.
makes sense.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, we talked about how we did experience burnout, but we experienced burnout in very different ways. I experienced burnout during my first year, but it was the clinic I was at. So it was the clinic environment itself, but I was like, I know it's temporary. I'm a travel physical therapist. I only have 3-4 months here. So
Yeah.
I'm like, whatever, like, I'll just get through it now. But yeah, all clinics have been very different for me, even though I am an internal travel, which has been kind of surprising to me, at least. But the clinics I'm at now are a lot better
Yeah.
mentally
That's
and
good.
vibe-wise.
Good. What was the burnout like? Like, what were you feeling or experiencing?
I was being put in situations where I had to triple.
Oh,
And I do not agree with that, nor do I like that. And I really was not given the option to say no in certain situations. And also, as a new grad and travel PT,
Oh.
it's like they
Yep.
want you to do all of it because
they
Yeah.
need you.
you're getting paid more to be here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
like, you should be
Yeah.
able to see this. And I've talked to other like clinic managers about it, and like now I'm way more firm on like I'm only gonna do it if I know the people and if I allow it, but like don't put it on my schedule. I'll do doubles, I'm fine with that, but the triples, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
I feel like also sometimes as a traveler, it's almost hard to kind of speak up because everybody's like, you get paid so much better than the
Yes.
regular therapist. Like, we're paying you so well. Like, you just have to take it. But I think that as I get into like more, and this is going to be my 4th contract, I'm getting more and more confident about speaking up and be like, hey, like, you need to give me time for documentation if you're going to give me 8 evals in one day, or I'm going to bill you overtime, you know? So, like, it gets
Yeah.
hard, but I do think in some cases, in some clinics, like, travelers are definitely abused a little bit, but you just learn to speak up, I guess, as time goes on too. Like, I
Yeah,
think we both
definitely.
gotten better at that.
Yeah.
That's good.
At first, I was like,
Yeah.
it's okay. Like, I'll do it.
Yeah, that's your first contract too, you know? Like,
Yeah.
you're just like, is this normal? Like, I don't know.
And then
First
Alice is
time.
over here doing one-on-one contracts, and I'm like,
Well, that's for me. So, like, when you were saying that there's a lot of therapists that are complaining, like, you know, I understand if you're complaining and then trying to change your situation, like you're trying to get out of it or, like, you know, find a different job or speaking up. But if you're just complaining, it's like, okay, after a while,
do something.
like, what are you going to do about it?
Got options.
So, yeah,
True.
for me, as like going into travel PT, like, I know I'm pretty easily, I guess, burnt out because, like, I burnt out during COVID in PT school, and I ended up taking a year off, and it ended up just being a great idea. I kind of had a little quarter life crisis, but I was 24.
Nice.
So
and then we ended up in the same class.
Yes, we literally wouldn't be here if I hadn't taken that year
Yeah.
off. So
Look at that.
it all worked
Yeah.
out for the best.
It always
But at
works
the time, I was like that SpongeBob meme that was like, you know, when he's running and there's papers and, like, you know, fires everywhere. That felt like it was me. I went through a breakup. I, like, you know,
Yeah.
stopped PT school. So everything was just like on fire. But then everything fell into place.
Yeah.
But yeah, so knowing myself, I worked as a tech at, you know, one of those PT mills. When they hired me, I did not know we didn't have a front desk person. So not only did I have to work as a tech, under 4 therapists, so I would work with 4 patients at a time
knew that.
sometimes. Yeah, this was during PT school. I also had to answer all the phones, do all the phone screens.
have a front desk
Yeah,
person?
greet patients. Yeah, it was just a lot. But looking at the positive, I really learned how to multitask at that job. And now working one-on-one, like having techs do everything for me, I'm like,
crazy,
I'm
right?
chilling. Like,
We're doctors,
and I
it's
always
crazy.
think, like, to that moment, I'm like, it could be so much worse. Like, I could be working with 4 or 5 patients at a time, be getting paid minimum wage. So, you know, I
Yeah.
was really at the bottom. So I worked my way up, and now I'm like so grateful because I had that experience, you
Right.
know? So yeah,
That's
it was a fun time.
Yeah.
It was a fun clinic though, which helped, you know,
Okay, that's
it
good.
was in Chicago, but it was.
I'm glad you guys took control and over your
Yeah.
burnout to fix it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I was at the point where I would get home and I would like make coffee to like do my night routine because I was
Oh.
so fatigued.
Yeah.
We talked about this in another
Yeah.
episode, but I was like, no, this needs to change. I
Yeah.
can't do this. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to ever
The night
experience this
routine
again.
is crucial.
Yeah, true.
So that's
What-
how you know.
What's funny is that as we talk to a lot of patients, have you ever heard patients say they wish they were physical therapists or they
Yes.
should have chose this?
Yes,
Yes.
I've had
Crazy,
many
right?
patients say that.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Then we're talking about, you know, burnout with us. Then they talk about burnout with them. They're like, oh, I wish I had your job. But you're like, I wish I had your job.
Yeah.
It's just interesting to see that we all deal with this no matter the professions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, it's a good one. If you could give one piece of advice to a first year PT student and then also a new grad physical therapist, what would you say?
First year PT student,
That's kind of just starting the program.
just starting the program.
Yeah.
If you can learn how you best learn, that'll probably help you the most.
That's fair.
Because as we all know, you're getting thrown a lot of stuff. And if you don't know how you best learn, plus you have to learn all the stuff, going back to the burnout conversation, you might get overwhelmed very quickly and it's just, you might spiral. But if you know how to learn or fly the plane already, then if turbulence comes your way or some problems, you know how to fly the plane. You know how to learn, whether it's anatomy or physical therapy interventions or whatever other classes we have. You know how to navigate that because you know
Yeah.
active recall or spaced repetition or, you know, all these strategies already to use for PT school. So first year PT students, if you don't know how you best learn already, I would say that's the biggest thing. And not just the technicals of the study strategies, but do you need to be in a room like this? Do you need to be at Starbucks? Is it morning? Is it night? Is it with a friend? Is it without? Is it before class, after class? Is like dial it in so well that you know if I go here at this time and I study for 3 sessions of 20 minutes, I know I can get at least a B plus on the next test. If you got it locked in, PT school will then slow down and you'll be in the zone. Like if you guys played sports before, then you can handle this test and that assignment and this paper and that stuff. So that's what I'd say for first years.
Yeah.
Were you a
That's good.
group studier or solo studier?
I had to solo study first.
First,
First.
yes.
Okay.
Then I can have fun.
Yeah.
And,
Okay,
you know,
that's
I think
fair.
you were more
I was very
group.
Yeah.
I was also the same
We
way.
barely
like,
studied together, I feel like.
we did at the
A
end,
little bit,
but
yeah.
more closer to the exam.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
lived together for a year.
Oh, okay, okay.
But it was our third year of PT school and then studying for boards.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
all of that.
Yes, true.
But yeah, I'm more of a solo studier. Like, I don't like talking about the information with everybody else before I've had a chance to review it.
Yeah.
Because then I just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you guys moved on, but I'm still
I
stuck
don't
on
get
that
it.
topic
I don't
we
get it.
talked
Yeah.
about 5 topics ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was kind of interesting. But then we had some friends in our friend group that were group studiers. Like,
Yeah.
they would kind of work
Yeah.
on stuff. But yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Then it was
New
first
grad
year.
New grad
New
PT.
grads? Oh man, there's a lot. I'm sure you guys will continue to talk about this on the
I
podcast.
know. Yeah.
I'll probably leave this episode and be like, dang, I should have said that, or I should have said that. But the biggest thing that comes to mind right now is that you're a person first, and or we can go down this route, you're a business as well. So however you want to take this, but you are not a physical therapist. That's your title. You're just a person who happens to do physical therapy, or you're a person who has a physical therapy license. And you can take your physical therapy license, and do whatever you want within the scope and within reason, right? So just remember that you finally made it. So whether you do travel, you have your own practice, whether you're struggling with burnout, or you don't want to take this job or this job, you have that piece of paper in different states or one state, and you can go and do stuff with it that you were dreaming about doing 2, 3, 5, 7, 10 years ago. You made it. You're
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Yes, I know you need money. Yes, you got to pay rent. Yes, it's overwhelming. You got to pass the boards. I know. We know. We've been there. I'm not saying nothing I haven't been through before, but you made it. Like, you're a physical therapist now.
Yeah.
Or you're not just a physical therapist. You're a person who now has a license to help people with the skill you have as a physical therapist. So take that and go have fun.
Yeah,
Go live.
I feel like a lot of people, or a lot of therapists forget that.
Yeah.
And just kind of like box themselves into this certain type of person that has to do this and that. And yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember my first patient that I treated as a PT, but I just remember my first week. Not imposter syndrome, but I was almost like laughing. Like, I felt like I was in a TV show. I'm like, are people really trusting me to do this right now? Like, did you have that feeling, or was it just me?
Yeah, so the first week, back to you, it was like the PTA came up to me because she was a new grad as well. We were all new grads at the clinic, asking me questions on my first day. And I was looking around like, me? You're coming to me because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to treat. I felt like a student. Did you guys feel like students your
Yeah.
first
I
week?
still felt like a student, but
Yeah.
no one was watching me anymore.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
That's a good
for sure.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I faked it till I maked it, you know?
Yeah.
Or I made
Definitely.
it. Yeah.
I definitely faked it till I made it, because I remember this one therapist. This was within my first month there, and it was like a nice compliment, but it was also like backhanded. And I don't even remember. I was like talking to a patient or doing something. I don't even remember what I was doing, but I remember this therapist turns to me and is like, "You're like a new grad?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You have so much confidence." And I was like, "Should I not?" Like, okay.
It's like, that could be really nice, but it's also like,
Yeah, like,
Should you
do you
not be
expect me to be
confident?
shy and nervous with my
Yeah.
patients? Like,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that what you think a new grad needs to be like?
yeah.
But we had
That's so
practice during
funny.
clinicals. We had
Yes.
4, 3, whatever clinicals.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So we knew what we were
Yeah.
doing. It was just weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so since we are travel physical therapists, we always have to talk about travel. So, what are your favorite places to go to and travel to?
Number 1 is Hawaii.
Ooh.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Yeah. That's number 1. Have you been
Yes.
there on a travel
I did a
contract?
contract on the Big Island.
Oh, shoot.
I
Yeah.
sobbed when I had to leave.
Oh,
I did
I
4
wanted to
months
visit.
there. It was beautiful.
I never got to visit.
No?
Which
It didn't
island
work
did you
out.
go to?
Oahu, right? That's the one with
Oahu.
Waikiki Beach.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Honolulu.
That's the main one that has Honolulu.
Okay, yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
You gotta
I kept
go.
telling
when
Melon,
we-
like, you need to visit.
Yeah.
But it is far, and you
Yeah.
were on more on the East Coast. But
Yeah.
It's crazy how far it is. Like I was on the
I
plane, and I was like,
know.
"Whoa, it's way out there.
Yeah,
it's in the middle of the ocean."
It's literally the middle of the ocean. Like when I was there, it was so Hawaii doesn't have like do the time change. So when I was there, at one point it was like
Oh.
6 hours behind from Chicago. So I felt like I was in like a different like country. Like
Yeah.
I felt very far from my family. But still, it was like the best 4 months of my life. Like when I tell you, I don't think I saved any money in those 4 months. I don't even care because it was like I was working 36 hours a week and I had Wednesdays off. Like would go to the beach, would go hiking. It was just like a dream.
Yeah, it's
Life.
beautiful.
Yeah, so it was amazing. And it was my first time going there, so
Yeah. I wanted to visit so badly, but it didn't work.
Yeah, you
what
gotta go.
places are on your bucket list to go to?
I want to do Japan,
Oh, yes.
Okinawa specifically.
I wanna go
It's supposed to
there
be
so
like
badly.
Hawaii of Japan.
Yes,
right?
it's beachy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somewhere in like Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, maybe somewhere in Africa
Yeah.
or South America. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
really have a pin place.
You
except
just like
Japan.
named so many places I have want to and
Yeah.
are like on
Yes.
my list too. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I've been a good amount of places within the U.S. I usually frequent, of course, here, Florida, because pre-PT grinds in Florida.
Yeah.
San Francisco and Denver. So I like those. I think San Francisco is extremely underrated.
Really?
It's very expensive. I
Yeah.
understand, fully understand,
Yeah.
but it's very underrated. I love it.
Have you been to San Francisco?
I have. I was there for a wedding. My last contract was in Washington, so
Okay.
West Coast.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Seattle kind of reminds me a little bit of San Fran, but yeah, and not too much. Yeah, but I do want to go back to the West Coast. So I actually did a road trip from Washington to Chicago like last week. It was long. It was like 35 hours in total. But I'm just gonna be going back to the West Coast.
Okay, cool.
So
I like the
either
West Coast.
Cali or Denver maybe. So for
Okay,
the next
cool.
one, so we'll see.
That should be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always have to tell people to go to Thailand because Thailand is
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Got it.
If yeah,
I'll
That
do
was
it.
her
South
post
Asia.
PT school
Yes, I actually
trip.
did Japan and Thailand,
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
and it was great.
Did you do Mario Kart in Japan? Do they still have that?
I did not, but they do have
They do have it? Okay,
but I
cool.
did not do it. But I don't even know where. But there's so many like random little things in Japan that you can just like find and do. So yeah, you can definitely find
Cool.
that there.
Got it. Thailand,
Yes.
Japan.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
It's great. It's a good time.
Cool.
Yeah. Well, honestly, we could ask you a million
Yes.
more questions, so
Yeah.
maybe we'll just have you again on the podcast one
Sure.
day.
Absolutely.
But
Next
we
time
will-
we're building Chicago.
Yeah, that's perfect.
which is kind of a rarity, but we will respect your time because we know you have a lot going on. Thank you so much for being our first guest on our podcast.
Thanks for
We really
inviting me.
Appreciate it.
Yes.
Yeah. Where can everyone find you on social media?
If you go to anything pre-PT grind, that's PREPT, like physical therapy. So like pre-physical therapy student, pre-PT grind, anything on social media, preptgrind.com, anything like that. You can find us, DM us. I check those pretty frequently. That's the best place to find us. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
And yeah, that's a wrap for this episode. We'll see you guys next Tuesday. Don't forget to submit your questions for us, all things physical therapy, wellness, travel, anything else. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, rate us on YouTube, Amazon now, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, because we would love to grow and have more guests on our podcast. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Physio Diaries podcast. And that is all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.